And the Patrick theme song be like, "This is my shush." Hello random person, Sab Nino here. Welcome to the first Pat Takes batch. Lately they've been airing 4 episodes of Patrick Star Show a day, so we're still gonna cover them every other week because we're working on a surprise project.
It's gonna surprise you, alright.
The first episode is Season 1, Episode 12B, Super Sitters. Patrick and SpongeBob go back in time to watch Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy when they were new.
I feel like this episode was made as a creative way to still use Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy, even though their voice actors passed away.
Plus, the fact that younger Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy exist in the Patrick Star Show makes a lot of sense, given that this is a prequel and they are younger. SpongeBob and Patrick are teenagers. Speaking of SpongeBob, this is the first Pat Takes with him. That's how long he's been absent of the Patrick Star Show.
Yeah, he's only appeared a few times throughout the whole show.
I'm happy that they're using SpongeBob sparingly because they could have easily overused them in this show. Like, I get at the beginning having Squidward and Sandy, but as time goes on, I'm happy they did phase them out for their own unique characters to make the show stand on its own. Can we take a moment on how cute the Dirty Bubble is? He's f***ing adorable. I love his little teenage robot eyes.
I like how Man Ray looks too, and when he zaps SpongeBob into the wall with his little finger.
Honestly, a lot of the designs in this episode were a lot of fun. I loved the coral barrel sponge looking buff dude. Though I will admit, the speedy one, that should have been the Quickster.
So weird. Yeah, that would have been a good time to bring him back. The new superheroes were okay. The stretchy one and the buff one were cool, but it's a little one note. The old characters are definitely a lot better. I liked when Mermaid Man used his water ball move and it was all baby-fied.
Also, the comic book scene felt a little too limited in the animation department. I don't mind them taking shortcuts. They're working on 3 shows at once. I get it. I feel like they could have done with a few more frames. Also, the ending where Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy and Man Ray are fighting because of SpongeBob reminds me a lot of Sponge on the Run, because in that movie, SpongeBob was the reason for everyone being the way they are. That's the reason why Sandy's a scientist. That's the reason why Squidward plays the clarinet. I think in that podcast we did with Drew, I basically joked about, oh, what's next? Are they responsible for Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boys fighting crime? I predicted the future!
That's insane, dude. You always do that. First Balloon Patrick, now this. And I guess I'm just sort of mixed about them doing this continuity changing stuff. Like, the Patrick show just does that thing a lot. I think in SpongeBob's last appearance, they showed how he got his pineapple.
There's so many weird retcons in this SpongeBob cinematic universe. I don't know, I think the one in Truth or Square was fine. I didn't think they needed to redo it. This next episode, we have been waiting for a while in this entire series of Pat Takes. It is time for you to do the honors.
So this is Season 1, Episode 14B, Fitzpatrick. Patrick's evil twin cousin shows up to ruin Patrick's reputation. It's called freaking Fitzpatrick, which is my last name. The character Fitzpatrick is really funny. He's an evil twin cousin, just very silly and over the top.
Wasn't it a little weird hearing your last name through this entire episode?
Yeah, it's very surreal hearing Patrick say it, like, so clearly. It's really cool. I feel really lucky and fortunate.
When are they gonna have a character named Sab? I'm the bigger fan!
Fitzpatrick's introduction was a little weird because he comes out of a wedding cake. Patrick just immediately trusts him, but is iffy on if he's actually even family or not.
When Fitzpatrick was ruining Patrick, I wished his Patrick voice was a little better. When he was singing with the Goofy Scoopers band, when he was doing the show, he tried doing a Patrick voice, but he didn't really do it that well to the point where it's that convincing. Like, I get if they want to make it a little off. I prefer them having a different VA that can do a Patrick voice opposed to just having Bill Fagerbakke voice whenever he does an impression of Patrick. But I think they could have found someone who could do a better Patrick voice.
They could have done a little more with his character too. Could have pushed it a little farther, but
they could have done more with this episode. I felt like Fitzpatrick could have caused more hijinks. The pacing's really slow. Slower than a typical Patrick Star Show episode. It's comparable to the recent SpongeBob episodes as of late, which is good. It's just weird when there's nothing really going on. Plus, the Patrick the Barbarian segment honestly felt like filler.
It's a nice change of pace from being fast all the time. but it could still be balanced a little more.
Also, Lady Upturn makes an appearance when Fitzpatrick was filling in for Patrick in the show, and she actually makes a reference to Camp Coral going, "I'm offended!" which I thought was very fascinating because they've only done that joke twice.
Yeah, it makes sense for a character. They used it again later in the episode where she went, "I'm not offended."
There's also a bunch of Goofy Snooper references.
Yeah, they go to Goofy Goobers, they have the band from that episode.
And in the scene where every Patrick from every timeline comes out, one of the Patricks in the timeline was Patrick's Metal Gear from that episode.
That was a crazy scene. It's a bit out of nowhere, but I mean, he did get put in a time machine earlier, so it makes sense for him to come back, but it's just such a crazy fourth wall breaking thing. It's like so many different versions of Patrick. It's a really cool Easter egg thing, though.
Anything else you wanted to say on the episode?
No, I think that's everything. But I just really like this episode.
Okay, before we get to the next two episodes, let's get to Tangent of the Week, SpongeBob Musical.
We were looking at some pictures of the old SpongeBob musical before the most recent one.
Yeah, The Sponge You Could Fly, a new musical. SpongeBob design's hideous. They later replaced it with an animatronic, which I think looks much better. But yeah, the one we got, the US, so much better. We have it so lucky.
Yeah, the new one seems amazing. I still need to see it. Andre wants to see it too, so maybe we'll see it when he visits soon.
Oh, that is confirmed. We are gonna do it. Let's go to the next episode. Episode 17A, The Drooling Fool. Patrick's uncontrollable drooling gets out of hand and mouth. First off, ew.
This episode as a whole is a bit gross because it's all about Patrick drooling nonstop and flooding the town. You could try to think of it as water and it's a little less gross, but the whole episode is like about that, so.
The first time I watched it, I did see it as water, but then I watched it with you and Tracy. I honestly felt really bad for Tracy because there was one scene where Squidina was in Patrick's spit and she actually gagged.
Yeah, this episode made her gag because it was so gross thinking of it as spit and how it smell.
Yeah, which makes a lot of sense. Patrick has very hygiene. I will say though, the cause of the drooling, the dream sequence, looked very delicious.
Even though this episode was a bit gross throughout the whole thing, there are still funny moments, and it makes sense to have the animation a little more exaggerated for this episode and this sort of premise. It's definitely more exaggerated than Fitzpatrick.
Wacky idea, wacky execution. Makes perfect sense.
I also really love the joke with Grandpat saying, "Is this the episode where Patrick can't stop drooling?" I've already seen this one.
It's funny because we haven't seen this one yet.
Imagine if they did play this one all the time.
What was up with the fire department scene?
Right. The flood is just gone and then they just use him as a fire hose.
They made it a bit, which I thought was interesting. Patrick's tongue just falls off and it turns out the reason why it was drooling is because it's a baby tongue.
I don't like him just walking away with no tongue. It's a bit weird how Tinkles just suddenly becomes hostile and attacks people just because he's swimming, but I do love when his tongue made a hand and finger waved them to come closer. That made me laugh really hard.
The entire episode, Tinkles eats ass.
He does. You even see the decapitated butts.
The last thing I wanted to say, I do like the concept of Dr. Plumber. He's a funny character.
Me too.
Until something dethrones this, I award this the grossest episode of the Patrick Star Show. Round of applause. Congratulations. You are the grossest episode, even grosser than I Smell a Pat.
Even then though, I don't think it's that gross. Drool is a great area of grossness, but it varies from person to person. Like Tracy thought it was very gross. How gross did you think this episode was? Leave a comment below. On a gross scale of 0 to 10, I give it a 6.
I'll go with a 6 too. Okay, the next and final episode of this batch is 17B. Patrick got a zoo loose. A shape-shifting alien runs loose in the star home. Did you really need the chair scene?
They had a scene where Patrick broke 4 identical chairs one by one in different ways.
That was just blatant filler.
And I was like, okay, maybe the last chair will be the shapeshifter, but then it wasn't even the last chair. It was the table instead, so they dragged it out even longer than I thought thought they would. This episode was just okay. It's just Patrick breaking a lot of stuff, trying to find it.
It's a shame, too, because I actually really like this premise. I like the idea of alien creatures. You know what they could have done? Have it be more like a show. Maybe Patrick just showcases a bunch of wacky animals, and maybe the shapeshifter is a climax. Have it be a Patrick show episode.
I mean, they did show a few animals before that one, but it went by really fast.
I wish they showed more of that, because the people behind SpongeBob are really creative. I'm sure they could come up with so many different character designs.
Space Rube was funny though, and I liked how he nonchalantly took over the show, and by the end Patrick doesn't even care, just goes with it.
Also, this episode just confirmed for me that Lazy Mary's mom is Old Lady Baby Prunes. They only said her name once in Biddy Sitting, but this episode they refer to Baby Prunes by name as Old Lady Baby Prunes. I also like the design of the shape-shifting creature as well, mainly as a spider.
Yeah, he looked awesome, and Tracy was saying it was probably inspired by this real one. What's it called, like a porcupine crab?
Yeah, porcupine crab. Maybe it was inspired by that.
The ending of the episode was super crazy, where they all just turn into the shape-shifting aliens. I like how it doesn't care about making stuff go back to normal.
They Rick and Morty themselves. They Cronenberg these f***ers. Also, Grandpat's scene was pretty funny. I liked how the shapeshifter filled in for Grandpat.
Yeah, he like screams like a monster, and it's just like, is that normal Grandpat behavior? Like, it's kind of hard to tell. The mom with the toaster was funny too.
And that was Pat Takes. Overall, this was certainly a batch.
Yeah, it's cool to watch them all in such a short amount of time.
So what did you guys think of these episodes? Which ones did you like? Which ones did you hate? Which ones are you mixed on? Remember to rate the grossness of the drooling fool. Comment below. And join us next week where we can't say. We're gonna surprise you.
Yeah, you'll have to wait and see. But thanks for joining us, guys. We'll see you for more in the future.
But if you want more Pat Takes, join us the week after next week, where we talk about the Patterfly effect to fun and done. And with all that said, it's all Sab from here.
See you later, guys.